actual ones. It was the successful ones weren't the ones that just went around murdering people for the sake of it, rather. They were the ones that, like Octavius, they were the ones that actually managed to keep most people happy most of the time, and they were clever and they were hardworking and they spent all their time working on things and striving to achieve something. They didn't go around chopping people's heads off with a dagger and then making out with a severed head because, hey, that doesn't do anyone any good. But that's the sort of thing that happens in 300 Rise of an Empire. So this haughty woman slices someone's head off and then makes out with it for some reason. And, that's pretty indicative of the film and the thought behind the film. It's actually really something quite spectacular when a film that is this sexist and it's this homophobic. And those aren't the two things that upset me the most about the film. It's the thudding exposition of the film. I want to make it absolutely clear, and I'm not the first person, dialogue is not just people explaining the plot out loud to us. If you're doing that, and this film does it constantly, then you are doing it very, very badly wrong. And they genuinely are doing it terribly. The whole film is just borderline actors, with their boy band looks, or, they're a hottie, standing around rigidly and spouting dialogue, which is just, it's just naked exposition. There's no attempt to hide it or tie. It's just, and now we are going to X and Y, and I don't really know. The film is terribly confused. It's not confused over what it wants to be. It wants to be the lowest common denominator. And boy, is this film the lowest common denominator. But it's how they try and relate the goodies to their target audience. These are the characters we care about. These are our target audience over here. And these guys here, they're our goodies. They're the guys that are going to appeal to our target audience. They're going to root for them. But by talking about freedom and liberty and statehood as modern American concepts, and in fact they contradict a lot of what Gerard Butler's Leonidas said at the end of the first one, which was a lazy cut and paste speech. It talks about the idea of Greeks and of freedom, and those concepts would have been totally unknown to the Spartans, and if they'd have understood what they were, they'd have hated those ideas. But there we are anyway. So that's one of the two kings of Sparta talking about freedom and everything like this. And then, in Sparta itself, the Spartans were surrounded by something like 10-1 by helots, that were the people that the Spartans had enslaved to do all their farming. That meant that the Spartans could spend all their time fighting and wrestling in oil and beating each other up and hazing each other. That was confused. But then actually this one, the sequel, then it feels like it has to go a step further, because they throw in the Athenians, and of course they were the Spartans' arch rivals for many, many years, and they were enemies and they would fight and they disagreed on absolutely everything. But because the Spartans had this idea of democracy, and obviously we forget that their idea of democracy was totally alien to our current existing ideas, it was more akin to sort of pre-Abraham Lincoln, the United States, with the white Protestant landowning males kind of a deal, rather than what we now have as democracy. But anyway, they've gone, this is even cooler than the Spartans. They've turned that up to 11 as well. The star here, and I use that term very loosely, is an Australian actor who's pretending he's not Australian, doing a very bad job of it, because of course he's in ancient Greece, and we all know that the people in ancient Greece and ancient Rome had clipped English accents, and they were all from southern England. It's a long-standing Hollywood trope, and if I'm going to blame this film for anything, it's certainly not going to be that. It's going to be something worse. It reminds me a lot, actually, of those B films. What were they called? Death Race. The remake of Death Race, which had Jason Statham in it, and then Jason Statham, he was a bit too successful to come back for the sequel, so they got that other bloke in it that might have been in Bros or something, and it was the B team, in the sequels. It was very much, hey, this is our B team. And there were lots of speeches about freedom. And it strikes me as television actors who sort of lucked out. And giving a speech, all you really do is speak a bit louder than normal. And that's a rousing speech. And then all the sort of people dressed up in armour go, "Arr!" And they're all really easily impressed by idiots. So I'm getting off track now, to be fair. But really, if you go and see this film, and you'll not just be embarrassed, you'll be bored. And it's the worst thing I can say about this trash. It's not the upsetting stuff, it's not the stupidity of it, it's just how bored it is. You'll see a lot of nips and pecks and severed limbs, and if you get an erection watching this film, you definitely are gay, no matter how many weaklings you might haze in the locking rooms later, for a laugh. There's no such thing as an ironic erection. So this is a remake because it's the B team, but the baddie is a hot chick, in that sort of unsexy kind of a way. But there's some stuff on the sea, they go in boats quite a lot. It's basically the same thing. It's 300 on the sea with a hot chick who's horrible, and she's got dialogue of a man, and that's what makes them tough. And there's a lot of gay stuff in here, and the film every now and again goes, God, they accuse a character of being gay, to show that they're so manly and tough, while at the same time there's some towel whipping going on in the showers or something incredibly gay. So it's a horrible, pernicious, nasty, non-ironic, moronic, white trash nonsense knockoff. Kind regards, Christopher Thomas.